Hello, good people, once again with the Try 53. But actually, what we're going to be talking about is this right here, the power connector. Now, this is a generic power connector. I'll go ahead and link one as the pinned comment, but winter is about to be upon us, at least where I am, but for some other parts of the United States, it's already there. Snow and ice and all that nasty stuff. So how do you prep one of these for winter use? Well, it's not too hard to do, but there's one that's really easy to know, and there's another one that's not so common. Yeah, not so commonly known, so I'm just going to get into that. And this is something I've covered before, but I'm going to get into a little extra detail, specifically one of these guys, because this is the one that has this connector on one side, the A connector, and then that one on the other side. And a lot of you use these things for older Garmins, but it also works on the 53, which still uses that old style connector. On the 66, 76, and 86, that changed. That one's USB-C. But this one is the older micro style connector. Anyway, moving on. So, the general advice is that if this screen, if you leave it in the car, and it is below freezing temperature, that being below 0 Celsius or below 32 degree Fahrenheit, you can turn this on if it's on battery, but if you have it plugged in, which you most likely do, that is a bad idea. And the reason it's a bad idea is it can create condensation right where this plugs into the back. And if you have that little bit of condensation, I mean, it's a very, very small, almost trivial amount. Will the unit still start? Yes, it will start, but that can promote rust. And that's bad. If you go on eBay and you look at some listings for older Garmin models, and when I mean old, I mean over 10 years old, like 1490s, Nuvies, and maybe some 2300 series, and you'll see even 200 series and 700s and things like that. Some of them, the seller will show the back of it and show where the port is, and you'll see the rust. And you look at that and you're like, how? How did that happen? And because this was more than likely used inside a car, not a convertible probably, and it's not exactly like you're driving around in the rain. So how did the rust happen? The rust happened most likely because that person left that thing plugged in year-round, all the time, and especially during the colder months, and then got into the car every day and turned on the car, and the power got sent over the wire. This started to heat up. This was still cold. Condensation happened, and over time, rust. Which is why you do not start this thing when it is below freezing. If it is above freezing, even if it's just 33 degree Fahrenheit or 1 degree Celsius, that's enough so that it will not rust. It will not create condensation. It will just warm up. I mean, you should have a little longer than that, but that's the general thing there. Well, you might be wondering at this point, it's like, okay, well, how do I avoid that problem? Okay. Well, the easiest thing to do is to bring the screen in. If you know it's going to be freezing outside, just unplug this and then bring the screen with you inside. And then when you go back outside, you can plug it in normally and do whatever. If that is too inconvenient for you, and this is where the extra information comes in. Okay, so at bare minimum, what you need to do is unplug this. You need to take this out. And then what happens is that this cable is left in the car overnight and it happens to be freezing. You have to do this, exactly what I'm showing you right now. You have to hold it because the heat from your fingers will heat this up enough, and that includes the pins, the tiny little pins that are on the inside, because the heat will transfer. You wouldn't think it would, but it will transfer through the bottom. And just hold it like this for how long? About a minute, maybe 2 minutes if you want to be safe about it. And for this, you have to wait until this thing rises above freezing temperature. Does that mean that you hold this thing in front of a vent with heat on? No. Don't do that. Instead, what you do is that you put this on the screen down on the passenger seat of the car, and then just leave the car warm up for about 5 or 10 minutes. The ambient temperature will warm this up just enough to where you can now safely plug this thing in to the back of the screen. In fact, what you can do is just take this cable and this screen, put them both on the passenger seat while the car is warming up. Just leave them there for like 5 or 10 minutes. The ambient temperature will warm up. The port on the back of this thing will reach above freezing. This will also reach above freezing, although with this one I would still hold it for at least a minute, just to be safe. Then you should be able to plug it in. You know, the car's running at this point, so you plug it in, do your thing, boot the unit, and it should be fine. Because the entire point of doing this is to keep the port from rusting. Because you don't want condensation happening back there. You absolutely don't. You would think that this would more than often happen in summer with air conditioning running. No, it's the winter that does it. Because you're going from freezing to above freezing. And that is when any condensation that accumulated on this or inside the port here, that is the only time when it would really cause a problem. Because you're not going to get condensation to form on this or this in summer. It's when it gets below freezing that it could. And it's not any type of freezing you can see. I want to make that clear. These, tiny little crystals that can appear. Now, in a worst case scenario, and hopefully this wouldn't happen to you. Now, I can't show this because I can't shine a light inside here. The worst that can happen is either on the port or on this. The tiny connectors in here, I believe it's 4 pins. Even if you're able to start this thing, let's just say you forget and you start this thing when it's below freezing. Well, if rust doesn't happen, tarnishing will. Tarnishing where? On the outside? No, on the pins. And if the pins get tarnished, then what that will do ultimately is that one day you're going to go to start this thing, it won't turn on. It just won't. Because the pins will have been completely tarnished. And if they tarnish badly enough, they will break. Or to be more accurate, disintegrate. Yeah. That's a real thing. This is why when you look at those listings of really old beat-up models of Nuvies, older Garmins and things like that, you'll see it, especially if it's a good photo. You'll see the rust around the edge of the connector, and then if the photo is good enough and you look on the inside, you'll see the tarnishing. It's bad. Obviously, you should not buy a model like that. You should get something a little newer, not necessarily a 53, but something newer, or at least something that looks like nice and shiny like this, that has absolutely no tarnishing on it whatsoever. And that's it. That's how you do some winter prep for one of these. So again, if it's below freezing, mind that, remember it,